Welcome to the EEE 360 video for Experiment 0, AC and DC circuits. Hello, we are the TAs for EEE 360 at Arizona State University. My name is Craig Bush.
I'm Harshada Brinsley.
I'm Chi-Chung Yu.
For today's lab, we will be using several different components. First, we'll be using the power supply, the resistive load, the AC ammeter, as well as the AC voltmeter. Now we're going to take a close look at the power supply. We have the fixed AC outputs, we have the adjustable AC outputs, fixed DC outputs, as well as adjustable DC outputs. To adjust the various levels of the adjustable outputs, we use the control knob. Here it's all the way up, and now we're going to turn it all the way back down. The last component to show you is the on-off switch. Power supply is now on, and now it's off. Let's take a close look at the resistive load module. There are 3 separate resistors on the module, and each individual resistor has different settings. There's a 1200 ohm, 600 ohm, as well as a 300 ohm. For this lab, we're going to be using one of the resistive loads, and we're going to be using 300 ohm, so we're going to go ahead and turn that on. Let's take a close look at the AC ammeter module. There are 3 separate AC ammeters, and this allows us to measure 3-phase power. On each of the individual ammeters, we have a 0.5, a 2.5, as well as an 8 amp slot to change the scale. For this lab, we're going to be using the 0.5 scale, and we're going to be using the numbers where the maximum value is 0.5. That's the middle set of numbers. And again, we'll use the maximum of 0.5. For the hardware version of the lab, we have both AC voltmeters, as well as DC voltmeters and DC ammeters. Here's where the DC voltmeters are located. For your lab, on the computer, we do not distinguish between the DC voltmeters and the AC voltmeters. For this lab, we're going to be using, in the hardware, we're going to be using the AC voltmeter. And we'll notice that there are 2 sets of numbers for the AC voltmeter, and it's important that we select the proper scale. So there's a plug-in location for the 100 volt scale, as well as the 250 volt scale. We're going to be using the 100 volt scale, so those are going to be the numbers that are along the bottom. Now we're ready to make the connections. The TA, Chi-Chung Yu, will be making the connections for us. First, we're going to start from the adjustable power supply into the AC ammeter. Then we're going to go from the AC ammeter to the 300 ohm load. And we're going to connect the neutral point of the power supply to the other side of the resistor. One last step is we're going to connect a voltmeter across the resistor so we can measure the voltage across the resistor. Now all of the connections have been properly made. Now we're ready to energize our circuit. We're going to turn on the power supply and adjust for 20 volts across the resistive load. We'll check the voltmeter on the right-hand side of the screen to ensure that we have 20 volts. Now we can see we do indeed have exactly 20 volts on the power supply. Let's take a close look at the amp reading. Now we can see the current reading. We're going to be measuring off the maximum, where the maximum is 0.5 scale, so that middle set of numbers. And we can see that the needle is pointing almost exactly between the 0 and the 0.1 amp. So this reading is 0.05 amperes. Now we're going to change the voltage level of our circuit. We're going to increase the voltage to 60 volts. Again, we can look at the voltmeter at the right-hand side of the screen. Now we see that we indeed have 60 volts on the voltage reading. Let's take a close look at the amp reading. Here's a close-up of the current reading while the voltage is at 60 volts. We can clearly see that the measurement is 0.2 amperes. Now it's your turn to do your lab. Please follow all the procedures as outlined in your lab manual.